I think it goes to point further to the fact that something is wrong with the fundamentals, because we need to ask first and foremost, what is fuel? This is energy. And there's nothing you can do to develop the country economically if the cost of energy is not viable. And it's not just fuel, Bitok. I think it's everything that is energy in the country is just too expensive.
Sure.
Whether you're talking about electricity, remember even the guy who needs to run a car wash, as we talk about micro businesses in the country as a way of creating mass employment and very quickly. You are saying that even if the young man in the village decides that what he wants to set up is a car wash, he will have to use some form of energy. That energy is either going to be electricity or it's going to be, the fossil fuels like petrol, diesel. And if the cost is out of reach, then it becomes very difficult for that person to run a viable business. So I think we need to have very serious thought into the macroeconomics of this country and be able to ask ourselves, how do we make the factors of production affordable, particularly for the micro businesses? The jump on the cost of fuel is a big shock because, you're not even talking about a margin of increment of a shilling or 2 shillings. You're talking about margins of increment of up to 5, 7, almost 10%, which is quite significant. I think we need the men and women who are sitting in the policy making of this country to really look into some of these things because they greatly affect the long-term development of this economy.
Okay. And this is a time, one day when you're talking about manufacturing being a pillar of the Big Four agenda. Electricity is expensive. Fuel is expensive. I mean, how do we start industrializing? How do we start manufacturing? I mean, and when the government makes these decisions on review of prices, is there anybody who's consulted? Because we wake up, unasikia mafuta imepandishwa, imeshukishwa, imepandishwa tena. What's your feeling?
Bitok, sometimes back the IMF and the World Bank started something they called the fuel subsidy reform or the energy subsidy reform, focusing on subsidies in the energy sector. If you remember, right now in Sudan, there are riots because of the prices of bread and fuel. Yeah. Because not only is fuel expensive, and bread too, but they are not available. And Sudan is an oil-producing country. Now, Nigeria has had enough of that, of those riots, because of fuel, basically energy. But let us ask ourselves one question. Do we really need to depend on fossil fuel to power our industrialization in Africa? And the big answer is no. Because Kenya right now is leading in geothermal power in Africa. Now, very soon, if the Turkana weed takes off as expected, we'll be leading in weed. Garissa County has the largest solar farm in Africa. So where have we been since 1963? Because the sun is very hot in Karagi Desert in Marsabit. Very hot.
In fact, our January is associated with a lot of sun all over the
sun
country.
is also very hot in Magandi, we talk. Magandi is used for training military people, so I know. Sun is also very hot in Ginyang, in West Pokot. So what have we done with the sun in Ginyang, Magandi, Kargi? What have we done with it? We've been politicking from Monday to Friday, January to December, every day in this country, discussing the interests of 2,684 men and women. Because that's the figure of the fellows we were counting the other day, 2684. That's what occupies our mind. Look at even the so-called influencers on social media, the tweets you see. What do they tweet about? They tweet about that category of people. 2,684 people. That's what has captured the imagination of the entirety of our country, our collective wisdom. No. It's simply because there is a disconnect between policy and reality. The reality is somebody will want fossil energy to be the main source of power for our economy, as long as they make money, as long as they can have the import quotas.
Yeah. So where their bread is buttered.
Yeah, where their bread is buttered. The same time, you look at, we've been cracking our heads saying, we have the independent power producers using diesel, okay, to add on to the grid for Kenya Power. And why should we be using diesel? You know, because it is easier and people will make money. Look at a power bill. Just buy tokens, you see the number of
itemization,
you know, and the number of brokers and go
In between.
in between, and that's the problem with this economy. There are so many brokers, there are so many actors doing one or two things. I have an idea of how expensive and what costs are passed to the consumers in the energy sector. Did you know that, Eric and Bitok, did you know that losses that happen to volume changes owing to changes in density, fuel density from Mombasa to Kericho? Do you know that consumers bear the loss?
Oh, really?
You didn't know that?
I didn't know.
It's that. It's that bad. Did you know that leakages, evaporation, and seepages, consumers bear the cost? Why do we, as consumers, have to bear the cost? Those alone, if you start removing them.
So, for instance, the pipe burst that happened in Mazeras,
yes,
and Voi, we paid for it.
Yeah, the cost is passed on to the consumers. I have told you also, there is what you call the octane levels of fuel. You know, I told you I've been to many places, so that has exposed me to many things. And when they do a dip in Mombasa, in Kipevu, the volume is usually higher because the humidity is higher, the temperatures are higher. If you take that fuel to Kericho, instantly, it would be less in volume because Kericho is cooler.
Condenses.
It is there'd be condensation, and you know, a consumer then has to bear that cost, and that's why those are the kind of shenanigans that this country, our citizens, need to say no to. And this is why Kenya Pipeline, you have directors there who don't care, because, I mean, as long as the cost will be passed on to the hapless consumers, then it's okay. And that is the risk, the danger we have, that you risk fuel prices in this country getting to a level where people simply stop traveling. People stop movement, because I know a number of people who've told me that they leave their cars at home, you know, since the fuel went back to over 100, because they can't afford. And once they leave their cars at home, that means that person can only go to the office, then try get for public transport and go home in time. That person, will not do anything extra for a day. And this is not what drives an economy. An economy is driven because we will leave this place, then go to another place where a man or a woman is making tea and snacks. We sit down and relax. But you cannot do that once you keep limiting the space, the economic space, because the cost of energy in this country is unimaginable. Yes, we want to stop subsidies. Because you remember the 16% VAT.
Yeah.
It's part of that reform by the IMF. Okay? And they carry a lot of training online, okay, on energy subsidy reforms. I have attended some of those trainings. I don't entirely agree with some of them, because you're asking African countries, African economies, to stop subsidizing their own people, but their own countries are subsidizing even their farmers. So is it balanced?
It's not balanced.
Yet I see a lot of praise, and we are told we have a lot of scholars, Kenyans who sat in UN bodies, World Trade Organization, World Customs Organization. What kind of negotiation do you go to do in those meetings? If you attend those meetings as a member, as a delegate of your country, is your business, as I know because I've been in public service, is a joyriders, you know. People simply want to earn per diem. I have been in a meeting in Paris with even governors and their hangabouts. And I can assure you those governors never attended a single meeting.
Wow.
A single meeting. So they were earning per diem, and they earned per diem, their associates earned per diem, but they were there for benchmarking on a very critical issue. And certain resolutions were being reached in those meetings. That's the trouble we have, that in all those places, we are represented by joyriders, because sometimes in the public service, if you are seen to want to change policy to benefit the public, let me assure you, you will not survive.
You'll be
no,
fought.
you will survive more if you changing policy to benefit certain cartels in business. But if you seem to look at policy that benefits the public, you don't get it. So there's a challenge to ERC. Why are you passing the consumer to the consumers of energy and fuel the costs of loss, seepages, leakages, evaporation, and changes in volume because of temperature? Why are you passing those costs to the consumers? And even if that cost is 3 shillings, 2 shillings, I mean, it's still a huge cost to the economy. Because the people you are passing it on to, you're passing it to people who use kerosene for cooking, for heaven's sake.
And also, even so, they even increased the price of kerosene. Kerosene is not even more expensive than diesel. Quite interesting.
Very interesting. And those are the kind of sometimes discussions we ought to be having, that, yes, you want to increase the price of kerosene to discourage
adulteration,
damage, deforestation.
And you see, for as long as the attitude is that the cost can be passed on to somebody else,
yes,
then nobody will ever sit down to think about how do we make the whole system more efficient. Because the attitude is, at the end of the day, the cost
there's
goes
someone
up.
who will pay.
Somebody will bear the
and the
cost.
question is, I mean, who actually regulates government? Who protects the consumer? Because it looks like we are the mercy of the decision makers at the parliament, in government. They wake up today, and because maybe they need to meet a certain cost, they decide, okay, what do we increase today? Ongeza mkate. Mkate today is even unaffordable. The price of bread has gone up. The price of milk is going up. I mean, just living basic life these days is becoming a menace and all that. Who regulates government? Who protects the consumer?
I think the consumer is pretty much on his own. Like Captain says, I think we have become one big enterprise. There are people who, when they see the country, I think they see a market and nothing else. They do not see the livelihoods of the people. They do not understand that we have people who are bringing up kids in this country to build their own life. For them, they just see that one thing called market. How do we make money from this big market called Kenya? But I think we need to decommercialize our thinking and our policies and try to sensitize our men and women into being more humane. That we can build a more hopeful society. We can build a society where everybody thrives. If we are just not just thinking about that one thing called money, making more money today from sugar, more money today from fuel, making more money today from electricity, and begin to understand that we have a responsibility beyond that issue of making money, that we have a responsibility to build a country that people can thrive in. People can thrive in as academics, people can thrive in the charity world. A society that actually functions and works for everybody. Because we talk, I can tell you for free today, I think there is only one dimension to the Kenyan life. If I was to ask you, what is the Kenyan dream? Who is that person that is called great in Kenya? Who is that person that the media wants to focus the cameras on? Is it the teacher teaching well in class? Or is it not just the politician, the person that has accumulated a lot of material wealth? What happened to us recognizing as heroes, for example, that doctor who just made a medical invention and is saving lives in Kenyatta National Hospital? What happened to us recognizing the great men in the police force who are showing acts of humanity to protect the security of the country? What happened to us recognizing the men and women who are fighting in very marginalized areas of this country to make sure that they help fight ignorance there? Because it's like the Kenyan script of who a great man is a politician driving a big car. A thief driving a big car, doing a lot of government tenders and all that. We have even forgotten to recognize that young man in the village who is not doing much in the country, but at least he has a family, he has a wife, he has children, and he's providing for that family. They do not have to be beggars. I think we have to take greatness back to the bottom of the pyramid and recognize people for the act of humanity that they're doing. There's this teacher in Kenya, I don't remember his name, is it teacher who was recognized?
From Nakuru.
From Nakuru. I want to ask you, Bitok, why did it take foreign media to recognize our local teacher internationally? Why hadn't he been recognized locally by the Kenyan society? But you see, like Captain says, our minds are far from the heroes in education. Our minds are far from the heroes in nursing, in health. Our minds are very far from the heroes in charity. All our cameras are focused on this one thing called Mheshimiwa.
Mheshimiwa?
Yeah.
Haya, Mheshimiwa. Mukurima X Muriuki, jamaa wa Baricho, as I'm watching from Los Angeles, the best my body, Wanderi. Anthony Lwanga watching from Umoja 2. Esther Sansan Anthony, Ato Media, Sabu, good morning. David Kamau, good morning. Team Tackle, Captain Akiwa, Show Ikomoto. Stephen Flames, Tomaga, locked in from Thika. Thank you. Wekesa Kelvin, good morning. Watching from Kisumu. Nice discussion. Thank you so much. Now let's go back to the issues of men. The other day, there's a video that is surfaced of one Omosh, formerly TDI actor. And this is not the first case.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of celebrities and people doing so well in life a few years ago, but they are sinking into depression. And you keep wondering, because every time such a case comes up, we say, let's fundraise, and then we forget again until another case comes up. We also saw some other guy who was a Tusker Project fame, was abusing drugs in Thika.
Yes.
He had relapsed into a lot of crazy things. And we keep having discussions about men who collapse, how celebrities and people who get in the limelight quickly part with their fortunes. Today, a guy is doing well, he's rolling, he has these big cars, he has women all over him and all that. Then suddenly, we are now fundraising for food. We are fundraising for rent for celebrities. Why do these guys part so fast with their fortunes? What happens?
Bitok, there's something called the fantasy of fame. Fantasy of fame. Fantasy of fame has no value. It has nothing you can hold and touch. Today, you can be very famous because you're appearing on people's screens every day. And there seems to be a big issue, especially, I don't know, he's a psychologist. He has knowledge in that area. But I have a lot of friends, by the way, in the media. A lot of friends. And I talk to them. And I ask some of them, apart from being this famous, you know, people have this belief that when you're famous, you're appearing on TV screens, you're making a lot of money.
True.
And I say some of them seem to have bought the idea that I tell them that today you're famous, tomorrow you will not be. You need to fade away, okay? You can't live on fame, but you can live on what you work on.
Yeah.
Now, in 1995, Bitok, I used to be an actor in Kenya Broadcasting Corporation.
Really?
Yes, burden of
KBC.
proof. Yes.
Hi.
And we were picked by our principal, Professor Joseph Nyasani. He was then the principal of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences in the University of Nairobi. And he used to read news at KBC. And let me shock you, we found these payment vouchers. Professor Nyasani used to read the news as fun, you know, not to earn money. But he approached us when we were in law school and told us that, look, young people, I've asked these people that there is VTB, which runs alongside, which is more of a comedy. I want you now, people, to run a real quote, a moot quote on TV. And I was among the people who are lucky to be the initial actors.
Should look for that file.
We need to.
And our director is a man I respect a lot, Mwaita Kiseo. I think he's still in business. And a lot of people don't know this, but I acted burden of proof, and I got my part of fame. Because I would go to towns like Nakuru, and everybody wants you to sign. You are an actor.
An autograph.
You are the prosecutor in burden of proof. But I earned some money, Bitok, yes, because we were being paid for the sessions. What did I do with my money that time? I remember I met a lot of people in KBC that time, and everybody was talking. But somebody came to talk to us and said that this money you earn here is paying for money, because he said this money, the product is you. You are the product.
Yeah.
You're the actor. So there is this feeling that I can still act tomorrow. You see, you have this feeling, I'm not going anywhere. Eric, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I will be here tomorrow. So if I earned 2,000 this week, next week I can still earn 2,000 because the pay was very low.
Yeah.
I know the vouchers. So that person told us that they very believe that you are you are everything. The product is you.
You're the in thing.
The script you write, you get. So you are the raw material for the program. He said it's very self-deceiving, and so he told us that the way to get out of this is that this money, because it comes little and little, look for something to buy to remember. So did I buy something? Yes, there is some area called KBC in the big masters. You go towards Ukabani, Kagudo Road. So I went to buy land there in Matungulu.
At KBC.
1995. Because you see, that is the only, we were told to look for something to do with that small money.
Yeah.
So that small money you are getting weekly. You go and get a voucher. I went and put it there. The land is worth some money now. You know, the area is still developing, but you can get the sense in why those people go down, because of what I've said. He's a product. He or she is a product. Is the script, the raw material. So it's not going anywhere. So why are you telling me to invest?
True.
I'll still be here.
Yes. And unless somebody now begins to understand that even raw materials retire,
True.
even very resourceful people
Become
retire.
obsolete.
And they get tired also, and they can get indisposed. And that fame will disappear. And after you go home, and after people stop watching you on the screen, you have a life out there. So there is that disconnect that perhaps you will tell us, Eric, because convincing people who are famous like that, especially those in radio broadcasting, TV broadcasting, virtually people in broadcasting media who are not the ones creating, but remember, they don't own the infrastructure.
True.
It's owned by somebody else. So you've seen some of them have even gone to become members of parliament, courtesy of the big names they've created through the media. But you've also seen when they go into parliament, you've got some of them now named other things, because they forgot that at that place, Bitok, you are creating this place. If people come here and become famous, we start thinking that Bitok is nothing. You know, if it were not, we've had people named as the best female radio broadcasters, best male. The following day, they are in politics.
Yeah.
And when they get into politics, you don't make money. Politics, you spend money. But you become famous. I know that because I have friends who are members of parliament and former classmates. And I know that sooner or later, after they leave, it's a struggle. So that is now what we need to tell these people, that you need to start focusing on the afterlife. As I said, stop planning for today. Okay, stop leaving studio and going to, I know some, because I've gone to some of the studios, that when some people leave, they take a beeline to some of the hotels, not inside town, towards Westlands. You know, it's good, it's famous, you're famous. Mheshimiwas will call, okay? You look big, but you're forgetting that you did not create that infrastructure.
Sure.
You did not create that business. And if the business owner removes the rag under you, you are a nobody.
Done.
You're done.
You're done. And that is what they forget, that you need to start doing some investment. Pole, however little the money is. I have a philosophy, because I told you I was taught by some older people, and they told me it doesn't matter how much money you earn. No, it is what you do with it that matters. And never look at the side of earnings in your life. Never look at the revenue side. Always look at the expenditure side. Even if you earn $1 million today, Bitok, but you spend 900,000 a month,
It's useless.
it's useless. But if you earn $1 million, if you are able to live at 100,000, your life change, you get 200, you upgrade. It gets to a certain level now where you cannot do any more. No, you can't sleep in 10 houses. You can't sleep in 3 beds.
True.
Even if your bed is 10 foot by 10, or 12 by 12, because you have 2 mattresses of 6 by 6. How much of that space can you take? How much of that space can you take? If you build a house of 40 rooms, how many can you sleep in? I remember an older man, when I was employed by one of the government agencies, said, we know all what that people can do with money, but it has a limit. Okay? And if you want to know the challenge, if today, Eric, you had $500 million in this country, Bitok has $1 billion, do you think he can live in a better place than you?
No.
You will not go to Karen or Kitsuru, and you can all afford. In other words, there are no new frontiers of investment in this country where a person with $500 million and the one with $1 billion can compete separately. No.
True.
We are a very small economy, you know. But this is something that that perhaps we need to have as a discussion, so that money has a limit, but you yourself, the individual, you need to. Do you also invest in yourself?
Yeah.
You know, you leave your employment. You're running to places because you're famous. No. Please take some time. Take a holiday from the fame. I like the word Bitok uses. Retire the fame.
Retire the ego.
Retire the ego. You know? And then focus on the inner person. Because when you bring children into this world, your children are not going to eat your fame. They need food.
True.
They want fish,
Shakura.
clothes.
Right.
So focus on the right thing.
Okay. Well, what are your thoughts?
I think I will want to.
Because
Funny enough,
how many fundraisers can we do?
yeah. This week last week I was talking to a very famous musician about this same topic. And one of the things that I was telling him is that, fame is like the beauty of a rose flower. It has a shelf life. And you will find that particularly for some careers, there are careers that, become better with time. They're like wine, But people that are in sports, for example, and people that are in art need to be advised on a few things. Number one is the fact that the audience you speak to, which would be your market or is actually your market, is growing, is moving. So you will find that the people who are subscribing to hip-hop today, Bitok, if you are their star in hip-hop as Bitok, you will find that 10 years down the line, that audience has moved and they don't want to consume your hip-hop. So if you did not redefine yourself as their star, then they are going to leave you behind and they're going to pick somebody else and move on. And this is kind of hurting, to the stars. And this is very disheartening to them because they feel like, as Captain rightly puts it, they feel like the rug has been swept under their feet. And I think the people that are in art and, for example, sports have to be taught a few things on commercializing what they do and using that fame as a pedestal to something bigger in future. And I was telling, for example, the musician sings in our mother tongue, he sings in Kikuyu. I was telling him the CBC education system is reintroducing the teaching of vernacular languages back to schools. And there is a big shortage. Yeah. Would he, for example, because he has already built a name as a Kikuyu singer, go back and start teaching the Kikuyu language, the Kikuyu cultures back there so that we are able to preserve our cultures? And I think it's a conversation that we have to continue having with the people that, for example, have fame, not to get into the deception of fame and to think that just because you're famous, the society owes you something. The society can help you if it wants to help you. But trust you me, that help is not a right. that is based on your fame. And what we are saying, Bitok, is, people that have a big name, extremely big name, but, the fundamentals are not right in terms of how do they provide for their families. And this is going to be expressed through psychological problems like addictions and all these things because of that dissonance, that you have a very big name out there, but you haven't paid the school fees, or you have a very big name and you haven't paid your house rent.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing also we need to mention is that there's a difference between what you're passionate about and what can pay your bills.
What puts your bread on the table?
Yeah, what puts the bread on the table? I can be passionate about singing, Captain, and I can sing even without being paid. Yeah. I can be passionate about teaching, and I can even become a volunteer teacher back in my village. I can go to a high school that is struggling with a teacher on a subject that I can teach, and I should be willing to teach on a voluntary basis. Because, volunteerism is one of the values that we have lost as a country, which we probably need to bring back. I can be good in acting, and I can therefore act, skits and all those things that are probably teaching the society something. But I have to reckon with the fact that just because I am passionate about something does not necessarily mean that is going to pay my bills. So I will probably still have to go and look for what can I do to pay my bills, so that I can be able to do what I'm passionate about. And particularly when we are younger. Because when you're younger, you do not have the network, you do not have people to hold your hand. So you need to go out there and even do things for free. So if, for example, somebody got an opportunity to be on the TV screens, that's a big opportunity. We talk. Yeah, that is putting you in the minds of the consumer. And what you do with that after you've been on the screen is really up to you. You can assume that it will always be like that. You will always be needed on the screen. Or you can be able to use that as a foundation.
To transition yourself.
Have a hotel. People will be saying, this hotel, it doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to that guy that you see on TV. Start a business that works for you as you do what
something
you're
that pays your
passionate
bills.
about. Yes, something that pays your bills.
So I think, so
And
if you
we
not
have an
drawn the
example,
line.
Bitok.
Yes.
I like when Eric put it this way. We celebrate Wanyama, we celebrate Oliech. But nothing captures my attention than Mama Oliech, a fish. You get?
Yeah.
That name, that brand was
Transition.
commercialized.
Yeah.
You get? And it benefited not only his mom, his late mom, it also benefited the people who work, the people who supply to the restaurant, and also the consumers of them.
And actually, it even benefited the owner of the brand. I mean, the Oliech himself.
Yes.
Because he collapsed. His enterprise collapsed. His talent collapsed. I think the only thing that's left of the Oliech now is the hotel.
Yes.
With that thing as well, ended up supporting.
Yes. So I look forward to looking at the stars we have. We've seen people transition. Some of them have been in media, like where Bitok is now. They've transitioned and they are doing other things. Some have become writers, some have become advisors on the communication. Okay, because they left. There's only so much you can do on radio, on TV.
Yeah.
After some time, you've got to leave and do something else.
Something else.
Yes, because as you say, even the consumer base is changing. We used to have, the guys used to run the KBC shows, the music way back in the past. Christopher Kirwa.
Yes, Kero.
Yeah, you put that for my son. He will not even recognize you.
Yes, you get.
There's this
You
guy
know
who used to
him,
have reggae.
Bitok.
I know,
Yeah.
Chris. There's this guy who used to do reggae shows. What was his name? He also went to Metro.
Yeah, and we had
Mwangemi.
Yes, we
Jeff
had
Mwangemi.
TV people like Bat Muksin. They are not there today.
Yeah.
And this is what the current stars and forget. That you here today, tomorrow you are.
You're not there.
You're not there.
But look at people like Leonard Babu Botella. They lived as, because you represent something. After moving, the late Mohammed Juma Jokona,
Yeah.
even after retiring, still called on Citizen TV to run other things because it's something you created over and above
Yeah.
The fame. And you would notice, people didn't know Mohammed Juma Jokona when he was at KBC. He used to broadcast football matches. So, Al Salala, Goli Mengia. These guys will not recognize that. The youngsters will not recognize that. But if you didn't get a match commentator in the name of Mohammed Juma Joguna, it used to be interesting. You would think that you were actually in the field watching. He would bring the screen, and we didn't have TVs, but you would know that this team and this team is playing. So and so scored. So and so is a good player. Mpira umezidi kiwaja. Words, you learn words. So
becomes very graphic in here.
So then you transition that fame to something else.
So it may be, the long and short of this thing is that we can say that we don't have the lines. We don't separate, our showbiz life from our personal life.
Yes.
From who you are on the screens and then who are you after the screens. Because you also I was also watching a feature on Joro of Papa Shirandula. And they were showing us the enterprise you build matatus and shops and all that. And these are the same guys who are in the same industry. Someone doing something else with their lives, and someone else is wallowing, who got lost in the fame and euphoria that comes with it, and forgot that you need to build something that you can retire into. Fame is something that comes and it's with us so fast. So I think we can almost say there's no line. Most of the young people do not separate the line between fame or what you do and then what your life actually is. You even take that fame to your house. You think it's what defines you. But you forget that something that people have given you. It's like a loan. Because fame is like a loan. It's something like you've been here for some time, then it disappears. It moves away to someone else.
True.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And I think people forget that consumers change every day. Things that people watch today might not be things that people will watch tomorrow. For instance, the conversation we're having today might not mean anything in the next 5 years. If we don't transition this, we don't try and move with time, then we lose in between. Now, you're already there. As a man, where Mosh is right now, for instance, apologies to use him as an example, but it's something that's happening across board. Now you're there. How do you recover from this? How do you recoup? Do you sit and cry and say, man, maybe I commit suicide, or I just move around and keep crying? Where's the turnaround? As a man, wapi ndio unaanza kuokolea unarudi sasa kutoka.
We talk,